Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. Each week we talk about heart rate variability and how it can be used to improve your overall health and wellness. Please consider the information in this podcast for your informational use and not medical advice. Please see your medical provider to apply any of the strategies outlined in this episode. Heart Rate Variability Podcast is a production of Optimal LLC and Optimal HRV. Check us out at optimalhrv.com. Please enjoy the show. Welcome, friends, to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. I am so excited about our guest today. I have read his recent book, The Pulse Cure, and if you're listening to this podcast, so should you. It's one of those books we were talking a little bit before. Is sometimes I read these books and I'm like, oh, I hope the author mentions heart rate variability. It would fit in so good here. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So Torkil's book on heart rate variability and his use both personally and professionally, I thought was just a brilliant addition for us HRV nerds out there that really want to see more focused on this topic. So I am really excited to have this conversation. Torkil, welcome to the show. Love for you to just do a brief introduction of yourself to our guests, and then I can't wait to nerd out with you about heart rate variability.
Thank you, Matt, and so happy to be here on your podcast because I've been listening to your podcast at least 50 episodes or more through the 3 years. So you're kind of HRV hero, one of the pioneers. So I'm particularly happy to
I'll take
be
that
here.
on a Monday. I'll take that.
I'm to introduce myself a bit. My name is Torkil. I'm a Norwegian doctor, MD, general practitioner, a lot of emergency medicine, and this book I wrote, it was released in Norway 1 year ago, and it was released in the UK in January, and will be released mid-May as a paperback in the US. So I've been working all over the country in Norway for 25 years, seen maybe more than 50,000 unique different patients, and I have a clear picture of what makes you sick and what makes you healthy. And I'm more interested in keeping people healthy or avoid getting sick. And The Pulse Cure is really a book about, the different strategies that you need to implement to avoid getting sick. And as we can now use the wearables like Oura Ring, Garmin watches, and Whoop bands, and all these different devices, it's so much easier to do what is right, because the lifestyle that is good for us is also measurable in heart rate variability, that as of course you already know. I don't need to tell you that. So it's actually, to my knowledge, at least when we wrote the book, it's the first guidebook on how to use HRV to guide your lifestyle changes. I did not find anyone else. If you know some, please tell me, because I would love to read them.
I would too, by the
way. Yeah. So it's really a surprise. It's really a surprise that I am the one writing this book, and not a professor or a PhD or some high-ranking medical person. I'm just a normal doctor. I'm just as normal doctor as you can get it. So
yeah,
but I saw that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I saw that there was a need to tell about this information, because I used it solely for my own benefit. So and my publisher saw that I was doing this. I'd written a book for them earlier called The Kamerakuren, about how to use photography to improve your coping skill or mastery. And they saw that I was doing these measurements and just asked, is this a book for us? And then I thought, okay, yeah, maybe.
That's
awesome.
Now
it has been on the bestseller list in Norway for 64 straight weeks. So it was
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So it's already translated into Danish and Swedish and Polish and Dutch and of course English. So it's a kind of a miracle, really. Yeah.
well, you've given a gift to the world, and one of the things I really liked about how you wrote the book was it kind of mixed in throughout. I thought you did a good job of weaving it kind of in and out throughout the book, is your personal journey with heart rate variability as well. And I would love to, like, as someone, obviously as a medical practitioner, thinking about health, being highly educated on health, like, I'd love for you to share just a little bit about, when did HRV come onto your radar, and how did it, change your thinking about yourself and your own health and wellness?
Well, my health journey started like 5 years before I became aware of the HRV. My father died at the age of 73, and then I realized that, okay, I want to live longer than that, and have so much to do. So I started changing my lifestyle, because when we were in medical school, we did not really learn anything about lifestyle and the importance of it, other than not smoking, of course. And then I became aware of that the knowledge about how to live better and for longevity and health, there was so much more information. So I started, and I had done everything wrong. I was drinking too much, I was smoking, I was 40 pounds more heavy than I'm now. I did not exercise. I did not care at all what I was eating. I was cutting sleep. Yeah, so I did everything wrong, basically. That's what I found out. So I just had to turn everything around. And 5 or 6 years ago, I became aware of that there is such a thing called HRV and the autonomic nervous system and the importance of it. And then I was just hooked. And then I started using ECG-based devices, like first beat devices and different kind of devices. And I thought that I was not stressed because I had heard about the sympathetic nervous system as fight, flight, and freeze, and I was never scared. So I thought I must be in the parasympathetic mode all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I realized, and the last 5 years has really been surprises and surprises and surprises all along,
Yeah.
about what really affects the nervous system and affects the stress level. So it has been very interesting. So it's been like an adventure into our own nervous system, and discovering things that, is coming to a new continent and being the first one there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
You probably have the same
Yeah, so I love that
experience.
they go into a new continent, because that was I mean, the other thing that's really weaved in and out there with your personal story is how you start to integrate this into your medical practice. And something that I think, at least, in the US medical system, we almost want you to be sick before we see you. So, like, and that's not, that doesn't represent what, especially guests of this podcast, how they look at health and wellness. But, it's kind of the model we've set up here. So I'm wondering, like, as you start introducing the concept of heart rate variability, I love how you, like, would look at people's wrists to see what watches they were wearing. Just sort of, how did you start to introduce that to, folks that your patients who may not have heard about it? How did that, like, help you structure your wellness and health conversations with them?
It's Yeah, that's good question. And so if I saw a patient with like a Garmin watch, that's the watch that I know the best. Then I would ask them, can I see your phone? Can I check your app? I'll just have a look. And then usually, almost like like a gypsy, you could probably tell something about their lifestyle for the last 2 or 3 weeks, that
Yeah.
they were surprised. Did you how could you know this? I could see that this day was hard, and I guess you were drinking that day or whatever. And so they would soon realize that, okay, there's some value in this, because in the Garmin watches and their body battery system, it sounds like something that Walt Disney would have invented.
Yeah.
But it's a real strong algorithms made by First Bit Analytics, a Finnish company, and as soon as I could read their curves, their algorithms, then there's so much valuable information
Yeah.
that could tell me something about their state that as a doctor I would have no chance of knowing this without this device. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so like how then did you like so you have that you can show them sort of what's looking at their past week, kind of seeing that, and then like how would you set them up to kind of move forward with this? So as they were whether tracking just overall health and wellness, or if they were seeing you because of maybe contracting a disease, or having maybe sort of worried about their health. How did you then kind of give them a 101 on, okay, how do you look at these scores in the morning? What do they tell you? How do you integrate that in to your care?
I would probably just show them a bit that the Garmin curves, the blue is a parasympathetic mode and the orange is a sympathetic mode, and just tell them that, okay, this is out of balance. You can see here
Yeah.
that this is too much stress, and what they can read on the app is warnings that these days are stressful, and then I could maybe point out, okay, this day was fine, and this day was fine. What did you do here? And they would
Yeah.
think back and, okay, I did this. Okay, a little bit more of that, and less of this. So just in this simple way, just giving some obvious, easy advice, really. So
Awesome. And I wonder, like, as you now, if you being a bestseller over in Norway, I'm assuming you're getting connected with other healthcare professionals, other, wellness professionals. So I'm sort of wondering, how has the response been from, peers in your field? Because we're still in a space where you could have, I've met cardiologists who have not heard of heart rate variability yet. So there's a wide
absolutely.
range of knowledge. And I would love to hear your experience, because I'm just fascinated with other medical systems that, I think they're all better than the US because of our enormous flaws that we have in our system.
Mm.
But just sort of what have those conversations been like, in Norway and
Yeah.
beyond?
Yeah. In Norway, there's a quite growing environment of younger doctors and nutritionists and physiotherapists and chiropractors and so on that will know about these things, and they have taken it to heart immediately. And all my friends, everybody I know, use the Garmin watches and track their HRV.
Yeah.
And then the old style, whatever to call it, doctors, they haven't even opened their eyes yet. They're not aware of anything. I'm embarrassed on their behalf, really. Uh, they don't listen to podcasts. They don't listen to the updated information that is so widespread. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't listen to any podcast like Mark Hyman or Diary of a CEO or Feel Better, Live More or all the other
Yeah.
Huberman Lab, or without hearing the exact same message. And
Right.
they're just not listening. They're just doing their job, 60 hours a week, and
Yeah.
they're not really paying attention still, and being very doubtful about it. They're thinking like, I didn't hear this in medical school like 50 years ago, and
Right.
then so it cannot be very important. It's probably the same over
Exactly.
at your place, yeah. And in Norway, healthcare is free,
Yeah.
but in the US, then I know to get sick is really expensive.
Yeah.
And the advice in the Pulse Cure is they're all lifestyle strategies that are free or even
Yeah.
cheaper than the alternative, so it's much cheaper to be healthy than sick. So
Absolutely.
and unfortunately there's too much money in caring for sick patients, and
Yeah.
it's too much money in having people sick for 30 years. So there's a kind of natural inclination to really wait until people get sick and then start treating them. And what is good about these devices is that there is money in preventative healthcare,
Yeah.
in technology and in these apps and so on to keep people healthy, and not the least that they can be in charge of their own health. So with these devices, you are in charge. You can see the results of what you do. And if you get sick, the doctor is in charge, and you are in their hands, and
Right.
really with these devices, you have it literally in your own hands. So it's such a big shift in time, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Excellent. So I always like to ask authors this question because I find when I love writing books because I think about things maybe deeper, maybe just different ways of things. So I was just kind of wondering, as you were going through the writing process, were there any kind of epiphanies or surprises that sort of, as you were structuring your thoughts in this very succinct and practical and really well-developed way, did anything kind of jump out, or any epiphanies that you might have had during the writing process?
Yeah, the epiphanies came as I had to, you know, investigate more and deeper, and to my surprise, you know, the fasting was so relaxing to the HRV, you know,
Yeah,
so being hungry, you know, fasting for a day or two was so effective, and also that the cold was so effective.
yeah,
That I didn't like that, you know, because I didn't like getting cold, as most people do. I was usually not swimming anywhere except for in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean or
yeah,
in the Pacific. So that the cold plunge and cold showers was so effective in
yeah,
keeping the heart rate down. That was a really a big surprise, and
yeah,
also the fasting. That was a big surprise, and that now, you know, tomorrow I'm going out into the sea here with a friend. The sauna and cold plunges is really taken on, and I hear also in the States.
yeah.
So
Yeah, more and more you'll see. I'm right at the base of the Rocky Mountains, so we have a
all
cold
right,
stream that comes out. I'll be honest, I'm just going to turn the shower on cold at the end and do that. But you see a lot of folks taking advantage of
yeah,
that. It's on my list, but I'm like you. I'm
yeah,
like, I really don't like this, but then I measure my heart rate variability and I see, okay, my body really likes this. Like it's one of those things
yeah,
like, oh, I just, yeah, it's like, God, this is cold. And like, but afterwards, and for hours later, I can just feel the benefits
yeah.
of that
For
shock.
hours later. So
It's
that's a big
amazing.
surprise, really. So two minutes with a cold shower, and that's enough. And
Yeah.
you get used to it. And the worst part is the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then your skin gets cold, and then the last minute and a half is not too bad. You know,
Yeah.
it's not comfortable, and but everything, you know, everything that is helping us is getting a bit more back to nature and
Yeah.
challenging our systems a bit more, you know, with exercise and temperatures and food, so that it's not just like, okay, I'm hungry, I'm eating. You know,
Yeah.
it's to regain some of the control that we used to have like 10,000 years ago. So often you can ask, okay, did people do this 10,000 years ago? And if that is yes, then it's probably good for you, you know.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing. Like it seems so long ago, but in human history, it wasn't that. We had a lot more evolution to take place before agriculture and everything kicked in.
yeah,
It's a fast. I love the so like with my background in psychology, the evolutionary biology or psychology is just fascinating. I think you can take it too far really quickly
mm,
as I see people do sometimes with eating and other things, but it's like it's a really interesting way to look at our biology, our psychology, our social behaviors through that
mm,
evolutionary perspective, and then to kind of map
yeah,
this out of okay, this is sort of why we think the brain and the nervous system is structured in these ways, and then plot that evolutionary biology and psychology in front of a Zoom camera that I'm talking to a new friend on the other side of maybe not on the other side of the world, but thousands of miles away.
mm,
So
yeah,
it's just fascinating to drop that evolution into modern society. I wonder if there's any other things
yeah,
that you have seen with that, because you do speak, I think, really balanced in the book about looking at that evolutionary perspective. Just any other insights
Yeah.
you might have on that?
Yeah, and it's we don't have to go all the way back and start, bow and arrow and
Yeah,
running around naked, but to get some of all the elements, get some
yeah,
sunshine, get some nature, accept to be cold, accept to be fasting, eat real food, as little ultra processed as you can. So if you can do a little and sleep, during the night, and use the circadian rhythm to our advantage. So we have to like play with our nervous system and our physiology and not against it as
yeah,
we usually do now. So it's just playing, knowing our biology and adapting to our natural biology as much as is practical in our lives. So and of course when you see it on the watches and on your HRV, it's so much more motivating to do
yeah,
that, because it's often something that is uncomfortable to do, but when you do these uncomfortable things, it will be more uncomfortable, because the most uncomfortable thing is being sick.
yeah,
By it's sure, if you, and people are sick from they are like 55 and for like 20, 30 years, and that's really hard.
yeah.
So you have to do something that's really a little bit hard every day, and you will profit from it for years to come.
Yeah. And another thing I love about heart rate variability is like if you do it, you can overdo it too, and HRV will let you know just in case, like I said, I've got some friends that all of a sudden want to change everything about their life. It's like let's pick one or two to start out this week and work your way up to it. You don't run a marathon,
Yeah,
and if you've not been jogging right away. And
yeah,
it's that kind of
yeah,
mentality that I think heart rate variability gets you kind of off the couch because it shows you the benefits of doing that. And yet we'll give you that little like, hey, you may need a recovery day, which for when I was an
mm,
athlete, we never talked about recovery, much
yeah,
less a recovery day. That was this that you got to
yeah.
push yourself, or you're just being lazy and hurting your
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. I used to do kayaking.
yeah,
I was on the national team, and we trained every day for like 5 years, and we trained always really, really hard.
yeah,
And even an easy day, it was never probably even a day after a hard weekend of competitions. I'm sure Monday morning we were
yeah.
doing hard training, so we had no clue. Uh, so, and I trained too much and had to quit because of that. I got some inflammation in my tendons and was not
Yeah.
able to take it easy.
Yeah.
So it's so much better to train with your HRV so that you can adapt and regulate, and then you can train less and achieve
Yeah.
more. So
Absolutely. And that's the exciting thing about it as well, is that recover. I try to use the word active recovery because I think people hear recovery and they're thinking about just like it's not a productive thing, especially in the US with our mentality. It's like, a day not pushing myself to my absolute limit. I'm losing time, right? And I'm time to think, well,
hmm,
maybe you walk a couple miles, maybe just you don't have to sit and just watch TV all day, but thinking
hmm,
about that, what you're eating that day, how you're sleeping, and really challenging people to think about that as part of your optimizing your overall, whether it's performance or just health, giving yourself those
yeah,
days to be gentle with yourself and see that
yeah,
as part of the journey as well.
yeah. And also you shouldn't be too much optimization because you want to live your life. So I'm
Yep.
very concerned about health normalization. So
Yep.
instead of being sick, being healthy, and from there on to optimize your health, we don't even know what that is. So because when I see patients that are well and like 94, 95 years old, I usually
Mhm.
ask them what have they done. They have not been
Yeah.
training. You know, they have just been doing natural things. You know, living like in the blue zones, or they haven't done anything fancy. So they'll just live quite naturally. And so far, you know, the ones who have been optimizing their health, I have not still seen kind of the results of it. So I think that health normalization would be a good thing, because you want to have enough health to live your life. You don't want to spend your whole day and night just thinking about health. You know, it's just it's not the end in itself. You know, it's just a means to live your life in an optimal life. You know.
Yeah. And what I love about you mentioned this, you talk about maybe a little different way than I do, but we're talking about the same thing about building those healthy habits. Like, you know, I make because I've just read books like yours over the years and implemented something, and then I just do it kind of every day, but I don't give myself credit for it. So like, you know, also looking at people's, what are they doing that's healthy already, and then trying to build those like small habits on top of that, you know, I think is so much better than, again, you know, the mentality of, oh, I know I wasn't doing anything for the last, you know, 10 years of my life. Now I'm going full bore into being the healthiest person in the world kind of mentality. And, you know, that can be harmful for folks. And, you know, with motivation, and obviously it's nearly impossible to succeed on, because a setback or two then leads you to just going back to the unhealthy stuff, which, you know, is counterproductive.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Awesome.
So and also you have your background in psychology, you know, and I think that we have put too much emphasis on the psychology, when often it's the physiology that is the problem. So if your physiology is out of whack, your thoughts are not right. But and you can put that into words, but that doesn't need it doesn't need to be words that will correct it. So when you get your physiology straight, then the thoughts will be better as well. So I think that that there's the physiology is much more important in many cases than the psychology and the how we can talk our way out of problems. Often we can train or relax and balance our way out of the problems, I think.
Yeah, you know, and I think this is the one thing in your book, and again, because, you know, when your hammer looks like mental health, everything, and nail, I want to hit with that mental health hammer. I really, because I don't disagree with you. I think that there's this integration piece which is so important. You know, I as you know, with the background in mental health and have been a therapist and in different roles in my career, is that I look at things like sleep, nutrition, movement. Really, if I don't talk about that with my patients or my clients, there's a ceiling on how much I can help folks. I can still help them because, you know, especially if there's trauma or other things, you know, negative thought patterns or, you know, anxiety. Well, we've got tools to do that. But if I don't help that autonomic nervous system regulate, there's only going to be, you're almost working against me. And that's where I think we agree what you said in the book, like 100%, is, you know, looking at that autonomic nervous system and those wellness aspects, you know, are going to have that impact on psychology as well. I just maybe, I think where we might differ a little bit is, I think to do that at the same time with a mental health professional who actually, you know, knows this research, which we're getting there. Maybe quicker than some of those doctors you mentioned due to polyvagal theory and the neurobiology parts, you know, is that if you're struggling with mental health issues, you know, again, working on both of those together, I think is where you get the bang for the buck. And then our friend heart rate variability, you know, is a metric of your body's ability to handle or recover from physical or psychological or medical or social stress.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the first place that I heard HRV mentioned was in the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. So that was the first place, really. And that he was saying that they will use HRV to see if the patient is can receive psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Because if the HRV is too low, okay, they will not be in a position to take advantage of it. So they would wait or time it better so that the HRV was better, and then they could talk, you know. So
Yeah,
absolutely,
absolutely.
both things are very, very important. But I heard like the other day some guy came or called me and he said that he had stopped. In Norway, we use a kind of a tobacco that you put under our lip.
Yeah.
25% of the population do that. It's not common in the States, but once he stopped that, his heart rate went from 80 to 59, and his anxiety vanished. You know, so
Wow.
it's like when your pulse is high, you know, it's like the
Yeah.
brain interprets it as something anxiety. You know, it something is the trouble. So
Yeah.
so it's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm a big student of history, and I love that everything was philosophy at one point. And I think while specialization is needed in a modern society, because everything is so complex that, what we're learning about, whether it's astronomy, astrology, whatever, or whether it's biology, nervous system, like everything's so complex, you need that specialization. But it's like, I think we lose the holistic piece of that. Whereas if your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated, your thought patterns are going to be dysregulated. Your social relationships are going to be dysregulated. And, your thinking is going to be all those pieces. And looking at, if we remove psychology as something that's around whatever human consciousness turns out to be, but it's something kind of separate from biology, then I think we're doing both systems a huge disservice. That's where that biopsychosocial approach, to me, while it's kind of dated now, it's still just so relevant to should be our thinking, to look at all these different aspects, because the health of your
Yeah.
relationship is going to impact your heart rate variability, your nervous system.
Yeah.
Your thought process is going to do that, as well as that nervous system impacting those the other direction as
Yeah.
well. And you don't always need a chicken and the egg. It can be an integrated system if you
Yeah.
put the pieces back together.
Yeah, and that's the trouble in Norway and probably in the States as well, that the psychiatrist is
Mhm.
separated
Yeah.
from the normal hospitals and the normal doctors. So it's like a wall between, so that the I don't know what they call it, the somatic doctors or the
Yeah.
normal doctors, and they know very little about psychiatry, and the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's all connected.
Yeah.
So there should be much more knowledge on both sides, I think, about
Yeah.
the connection between everything.
Yeah. Well, and our friend HRV gives us, I really believe, a language, and your book does this. That's where I think it's such a gift to the world is, what you're trying to do, what I'm trying to do is create a shared language where, if we're sitting in a room, multidisciplinary team from different perspectives, we've got a shared understanding of what's going to drive outcomes in pretty much any medical condition or the mental health condition, social condition. Like, heart rate variability can give you an insight. Again, you might want to run a whole bunch of other labs depending on what you're talking about. But at the same time, that heart rate variability needs to be part of those vital signs and
Yeah,
lab results to tell
yeah,
us,
and
are
not,
we being effective?
yeah, and absolutely, and the fact that you have it on your arm at
Yeah,
your disposal anytime, you know. So, for example, you know that the women and the menstrual cycle, that
yeah,
you can see that the week before menstruation is a physiological stress, you know,
yeah.
that's a big load on the system, and you cannot do the same job or train or put the same amount of stress in your life this week before menstruation as you can in the other weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So the result is, I see it because we have a social website called thepulsecure.com. In Norway, it's the pulskuren.no, or the translation of it, and we have 4,000 members, and so I get to see so many algorithms, so many curves, and I can see that the week before menstruation is as hard as a COVID. You know,
Wow.
it's more or less the same amount of a physiological load. And it's like the women have like a COVID, you know, once a week, every month.
Yeah.
And it's not just a mood, or it's not just frustration, you know, that you are annoyed or irritated, but it's a physiological load on your system that is very visible. So it's like having a speedometer on your wrist, so you can see the load on your system at each moment, anyway, and then you can try to be like a detective of your own autonomic nervous system and see what is this.
Yeah.
You know, what is this load coming from? Was it the alcohol yesterday, or was it the food?
Yeah.
So many people find that there are certain foods they don't tolerate, you know, like gluten
Yeah.
or flour-based foods at all, and you know, ultra-processed food. I for my sake, I tolerate chili very badly. So if I eat a meal with chili, I'm the whole night is just stressful. So
Evolutionarily, I don't know if your ancestors were that exposed to chilies. So, you know, kind of.
yeah, yeah, and also that is so individual. It will tell
Yeah.
you how do you react to this, you know, because what I see also, because all my friends, you know, have Garmin watches, so I can see that when we do the same thing, we respond to it differently.
Yeah.
So although some like RCT research could show that, okay, the average is like this, it doesn't matter, because you may be an outlier
Yeah.
or be in the opposite side of the scale.
Right.
One of the also very important thing is it shows how you react
Yeah.
to a certain stressor.
Love it. So I usually ask authors to think about the future, and I'm going to ask you that question too. But I'm interested because you offer a kind of a unique opportunity. As you probably finished writing the book a couple years ago now, or a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, yeah.
So
Year and a half or
what's give
so.
me an update, because I just got your thinking up to a year and a half ago. So I just kind of wonder, I'm assuming HRV is becoming more and more a part of your profession,
Yeah.
your thinking. It hasn't probably gone away. So I just kind of like,
Mm.
give me an update after finishing the book like last week. What's new? What would be the new appendix if you were to write one about the last year and a half?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, before I wrote the book, everybody thought that what's this weird guy doing? You know, measuring his pulse. You know, what he must be a lunatic or a really weirdo. So, but now the whole country does this. You know,
Yeah.
it is strange, really. I can. There's something about the pulse and the heart rate variability and the pulse curve in the newspapers every week.
Wow.
And
That's
before the
so
book is
cool.
released, nothing, you know. So
Yeah.
it has really changed the way a lot of people look at their health. So if the same thing happens in the States, you know, in a short time, because you know, this is it's so easy to understand. It's
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's like a gamification of yourself. So there has been such a change just for this last year with after the book has been out that it's hardly conceivable. Um, so and I think the same thing will happen, you know, in the US. You know, Garmin
Mm-hmm.
is an American product. It's an
Yep.
American watch, and you have Whoop, and there's so many things happening now. So I think this is happening so fast. So
Yeah.
just in a couple of years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it will be HRV will be something that everybody knows. Everybody knows their speed. You know, HRV is like your physiological speed, and it will be meaningless not to know it in
Right.
just a few years.
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
and I think, you know, and I'd love to get your from the medical side of things. It's like, you know, that there is, I think, an interesting, because you know, and Apple Watch, you know, and I'll just say I won't take a stand on it, but if you look at HRV Twitter, there's not a whole lot of fans of like the Apple Watch, but it's getting better, right? So, you know, I look out, and if I'm doing a training
yeah,
or talking to an audience, there are so many, like Apple Watches are probably the most popular over here. So we're getting those, but very few people with an Apple Watch I
But
talk to really
yeah,
know what heart rate
yeah,
variability is, much less what
yeah,
I'm saying about SDNN and
yeah,
how Apple measures it. They don't care about that because they
yeah,
don't even know what I'm talking about. But it is that,
yeah.
that thing. And then how do we talk about it scientifically? Because it's a
Mm-hmm.
very easy thing to get to take off and use it for your own purposes, as I like to kind of say, of, oh, this
Yeah,
works for everybody because it worked for me. It's like, no, heart rate
mm,
variability is so amazing because, yeah, we can do population, we can do control group studies, but, it's so individualized that,
yeah,
I'm hoping books like yours really help to educate the
mm,
conversations moving forward, because it
yeah,
can get pretty pop culture and watered down
mm,
pretty easy too.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think will be very, very well known in a few years. And with Apple Watch, I think they have to turn around pretty quickly because now Samsung is coming with their Galaxy Ring, you probably
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And if that is as good as the Aura Ring, which it probably is, then the Apple will be in big trouble.
yeah,
So they need to invent something really, really fast.
yeah,
But on the Apple Watch, I think that the one app that is not too bad, to put it that way, is the Athletic app. It
yeah,
seems to have something to it. Not anywhere near the Garmin or Aura or Whoop, but it's a lot better than nothing.
yeah.
That is the alternative. So, but I think Apple will have to up their game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And they might as well. I mean, they do have, I think, hundreds of billions of dollars in the bank. So I mean, I think you got us too. If they're interested in some consultant work, I think they should reach out to us. But
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
have the money to afford our fees. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
any other, like, when you look into the future, is there anything else that
Yeah.
you are excited about, wondering about, worried about? Just, I love to wrap up on this question of just looking forward, and what are your
Mm.
sort of, what do you see, what do you feel about the future, besides it spreading, hopefully like wildfire?
Yeah. I think in the future there will be much more focus on rest.
Hmm.
So that seems to be the problem. And I'm currently writing the book now on rest. I'm kind of extending the chapter, the 10, 15 pages in the Pulse Cure about rest and just making it to a book, just putting the
Awesome.
magnifying glass on it. And it seems also that rest is not just something that you downtime with no use.
Yeah.
The rested state is very productive. The most productive people are very good at resting,
Yeah.
and they're using the default mode network in the brain and the good ideas. So it's kind of like when nothing happens, that's when everything can happen, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that there'll be much more focus on rest instead of being on all the time. So that is something I hope will happen. It has to happen.
Yeah.
So because if you don't find time for rest and recovery, you'll burn out. And I'm not sure how it is in the States, but burnout is so common in Norway.
Yeah.
People are like crashing, from 25-year-old, and 35-year-old young people, and and they are the ones that are most happy about the Pulse book.
Yeah.
It gives them and the devices because it gives them a possibility to regulate their systems because the ones who are most prone to get into a fatigue situation are also the ones who are not very good at listening to their own bodies. So
Right.
when they get these signals and the watch can tell them that, okay, you're in overdrive here, you need to relax, then it's almost for them it's almost a relief because there's somebody else telling them that you have the license to rest. You don't,
Yeah.
and they have such a, they get a bad conscience of not working hard and so on. So I think particularly the most important thing about these watches and these devices is that we keep these very productive people running
Yeah.
because it's not only that if they get sick, it's not only that we have to use a lot of money for them and that they are not able to do their work, but if they had their system in balance, they would be able to do a lot of good work. But they're just having such a high physiological and mental speed that is not sustainable over time. So they just crash, and then they spend years, trying to get back.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure if
how do
you
you
see the
go,
same thing.
Yeah.
Do you see the same thing in the States?
Oh, it's a public health issue at this point. Yeah. Gallup, who does really good surveys in the organizational arena, they said 59% of our workforce is currently burned out. And I trust that they do the best research, I believe, organizationally that I've seen. And so if you think about like a medical practice, and granted, not everybody might be working, but if you think about that, everybody who's employed that walks into your practice, there's a 60% chance that person is going to be, their stress burden, their alostolic load is at an unhealthy level. Like we need to assess and help desperately.
Yeah,
I mean, if 60% of people are walking in with COVID, we would help them. So it's like, I'm trying to put this on the radar. And the problem here in the States, at least, is who are the most burned out people are physicians, providers, and nurses in the healthcare arena. So asking a bunch of burnout people to be aware of burned out people, that's scary. Like, so our healthcare system is getting it, both of the mental health crisis, but then there's the biggest, I mean, as I use this analogy in my training for healthcare providers, you pack a football stadium with random people from your community, and you've got mental health resources, and all you know is about their occupation, you would call the nurses and physicians and healthcare workers up first. And that's pathetic. I mean, that's not sustainable. So on both sides of the equation is we've got burned out people walking into clinics with dysregulated nervous systems, and they're getting treated by professionals who have extreme dysregulated nervous systems.
Absolutely.
Now, where's healing happen, my friend? Like, it's just,
because the body, has the body has its own healing system, developed through millions of years, as long as you give it time and the recovery to be able to do its job, and I'm sure that you would never get into a state of fatigue without the watches or rings really warning you, just blinking red that you're overstressed, this is not you need to relax. So that's maybe the most important thing that so for most people it's something that keeps you on the road, but at least it doesn't make you fall down a cliff, so it's kind of a guardrail, these watches is kind of a guardrail to avoid that you just run over a cliff and end up in the bottom there and have a long way to get up.
Well, and I think too, it gives you like a street sign further back of, be careful. Like that's where I think heart rate variability, like in my own experience, like I see if my 7-day average is about, what we kind of settled around for the Heartbeat of Business that I wrote with Ina and Dave Hopper, is like you see a 15% drop in your 7-day average versus your all time. It's like just a warning sign. It's like that, hey, there's a steep curve coming up here, beware. So hopefully, you can take action before you maybe even need the guardrail. That would be, I think, using your great analogy, like, okay, I'm seeing this drop. What's going on here? Maybe I got a cold. Maybe I'm training for a half marathon. There could be other answers, but if I don't have any other clear answers, okay, I'm seeing this. And then I encourage people to have like, what's your quick plan to, do something fun on the weekends, to take an extra day off, but have that plan ahead of time to say, okay, when we see this drop, what can I do to not go any further? And that, I think, HRV gives you a brilliant early warning sign when it comes to
Absolutely. And also in addition to that, something that's very practical for us doctors is that after an infection, if you get the flu
Yeah,
or COVID or pneumonia or after an operation, after surgery, I'm surprised to see how long time even a
yeah,
small minor surgery will result in so long recovery time.
yes,
A lot longer. You would think that I should be ready in 5 days. No way. It can take 3 weeks. So then we can
absolutely.
see, okay, when can you go back to work? When can you go back to do exercise? And compared to your HRV.
Yeah,
So it's so for us doctors, it's so incredibly useful tool.
love it.
And as I said, the most important is that the patients have it on the wrist and hopefully even avoid getting to be patients.
Yep. That is the key. Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
and like I said, and I appreciate it. I want to thank you for the Pulse Cure. Let me get the whole name here. The revolutionary new way to balance stress, optimize health, live longer. I've got the pre-sale is on Amazon right now. The release date here in the US, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing May 14th
May
of this
14th,
year
yeah.
that's coming out. So I'm really excited to get that out to folks. I need you to promise me as you're getting ready to publish the book on recovery that you reach back out, if not sooner,
Oh yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
I want to really nerd out with you about that,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see how that 15 pages expands, because I think that's such a crucial issue, and what a great follow-up to the Pulse
Yeah.
Cure. I think that'll be another great gift you give the world.
Yeah. I'd love to be back talking to you, Matt. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. So
Absolutely. So as always, we'll put some show notes. We'll get links, contact information at optimalhrv.com. So really appreciate your work, my friend. I can't wait to have you back. So again, the book is The Pulse Cure. You can buy it in some. I know we got listeners around the world, so
yeah. And
check
also
your
you
info.
can and you can also go into the pulsecure.com. You will see a video lecture. It's a social
Great lecture.
network. So you saw the lecture?
Yes, great. It's a
Yeah.
great job.
Yeah. So
I
you will
listened to that
yeah.
and before I read the book, and it was a great
Yeah.
compliment
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. So you will get your answer. There's a blog there and everything. So you will get answer and you will meet other people that are doing the same thing. In Norway, we have 4,000 members, but now we are starting also the international the postcure.com site. So it will be exciting.
ThePulseCure.com. We'll
So
put that in the show notes as well.
mhm,
All
mhm.
right. So thank you so much. Thanks for our audience, and we'll see you next week.